if you ever realize your registration's out, and it had been out for like a month, because you somehow only realized it when you got pulled over and the officer just let you know, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. What's up, y'all? Woo! You gotta love having that power right on tap. These country roads, you gotta pull out and everybody's going 60 to 80 right out the gate. Let me know if it's like that for you down wherever you're from. Probably don't do that. I mean, that song is I don't drive 55 for a reason. So what's up, y'all? I am heading in. I thought I'd just have a talk. I've had some things going through my head. I can't figure out how I'm going to carry a guitar with me potentially and also carry a pedal board. And I'm open to suggestions. I don't know anybody that's done that before. Now I know that there's, newer equipment out there. So there's things such as not pedal, but amp modelers and guitar amps in a box, those kind of things. My main problem kind of comes from the fact that my guitar tone, yeah, I know people say tone is in the hands, but my guitar tone kind of comes from a couple of signature pedals worked in a certain way, mixed out along with the way that I mix in, guitar effects. I'm having to travel on the bike, and I got offered to play a gig. So that means I have to figure out how to at least carry a guitar, which I also have not figured out yet, because I still don't have a luggage rack, I don't have a sissy bar, I don't have saddlebags, I quite literally have nothing. This is why you see my shadow over here. I am wearing a backpack, because every day, whatever I need for the studio, I carry it in that backpack. And that's how I get back and forth. There are certain days where I drive to the studio and drop off bigger items. And then there's days where I might be doing errands, running by the studio to do something, and I have the dogs with me. So that's why I kind of plan out when I know I'm going to be doing something that's not too loud. So that the dogs will be comfortable in the room. So I don't really like blasting the drums or blasting the guitars while the dog's in the room. And I've got the other room I could put them in, but the other room is made more for a reverb chamber. It's not really quieter being the other room. It's just kind of purposely reverberates louder, and that was on purpose. I'll have to, right now that room is a mess, but I'll have to show you guys that room too. But yeah, so I plan out the way that I do things. I don't want to just leave the dogs in there when I'm going to be having to track guitars. So part of that is also the fact that sometimes I do have the dogs with me and I just want to track a guitar, but I don't want to really turn on my amp. It's not that serious. I'm just doing a little demo. I had a little idea. I just want to jot it down before I forget. And I don't really need to turn on my full, 100-watt amps for that kind of thing. So for those situations, I'd also like some other type of rig. So I'm torn between this new pedal that came out called the Boss IR2. It's a amp cab simulator, and it simulates 11 different amps, and I think 11 different cabinets as well. and you can simulate these amps and cabs and then go direct out of this pedal. But the pedal also features an effects loop, so essentially it works like a real amp, only instead of a microphone, it acts as if there's already a microphone on the cab, and that microphone comes out. So that's what I'm thinking about getting. I also thought about things like the Quad Cortex. I think it's made by Neural DSP. I've heard good things about it. I don't really know enough about it yet. I know in a previous one of these I talked about the Kemper, and I think I talked about an Axe Effects. And both of those, the Axe Effects is more of a modeler. I don't believe that the Axe Effects, you can copy your own amps into it. It just already has copies of or emulations of amps that exist already into it, and then you just kind of tweak them there to make them sound like your own. But the Kemper, you run a microphone on your personal amp, and you go directly into both your amp and that unit, and it will run peak noise into it and model your amp. That actually sounds like the best idea. I just don't feel like buying this like really expensive thing for potentially a one-off reason. Although, actually, now that I think about it, I think that they created this small, like, player portable Kemper. I think one of those recently came out. I just don't know what it has. I don't know if it has an effects loop or, you know, what all capabilities it has. Ideally, I do really like the pedal amp platforms. That's definitely an option. But if I were to get something, I'd also like to get something with like a headphone output so that I could use it as a practice rig or a backstage rig, plug some headphones into it, and, you know, be able to warm up. That sounds like the best idea to me, because I can, you know, travel with it, use it in a hotel room, warm up backstage, plug it in directly into a PA and have my sound, that kind of thing. And I never had any use for something like that, so I always just use like those little 15-watt solid-state practice amps, you know, where they have like presets on them. That's kind of what I always did before. I never really needed something in the way that I need now, but if I were to play a gig, and what they're talking about is it's a pretty large venue. It's what I was told. I don't know. And they wanted me to sit in with the band and just run through a couple songs. And I said yes, because I'll be in the area. So we'll see. Right now I'm on the hunt to figure out how to get that done, how to even carry a guitar. Haven't really addressed that issue yet. That's probably honestly the bigger issue. Then also, what guitar would I take? Because the guitar has to cover a couple of different genres, a couple of different sounds. So I'm going to be trying to figure out how to get that done as well. So all in all, just I'm really racking my brain on how am I going to do this in, oh, I forgot to mention, this is all in less than a month. I'm trying to figure out how to get this all done in less than a month. So, figuring out in less than a month what I'm going to do about getting a guitar and getting a rig together, being able to cover multiple tones. I think one of my like guilty pleasures is there's this show that if you're a guitarist, you probably already know about it. It's called That Pedal Show. It's a British guy and an Australian guy that they just talk about pedals and amps and the dichotomy between using them back and forth, and they go into some, it's not really science, but they'll go into some of the background details on it. Like, they'll explain ohmages into cabinets and how that affects tone and makes the sound slightly different, and they'll talk about the difference between running a smaller tube amp, meaning like low power outage tube amp, say 5 watts to 10 watts or 15 watts, versus playing a 30 or 50 watt on a low volume or those 15 watts on a high volume, and what it does, because you start to get the amp saturation from the power section of the amp. They'll talk about those kind of things too, and how that affects the tone, and how they like to mix and match. And I've learned a lot of things over the years by watching that show. And I was always using pedals the entire time I played guitar and piano. And I actually have a vintage Fender Rhodes piano that I can run guitar effects into. That I'll have to do an episode on that to show you guys. That's actually pretty interesting. And I don't think a lot of people do that. A lot of people nowadays just run, you know, synth keyboards and MIDI keyboards with synth effects on it, and or digital emulations of analog effects through that kind of thing. And nobody really does it live like that. It's kind of interesting. Now, I'm by no means the best piano player for any record. I studied piano in college, but I am not the best piano player. I honestly I took piano to learn how to play guitar and drums better, as funny as it sounds. And I looked at the piano as a extension of my music knowledge for the things that I wanted to do and create. And it really did help. It honestly did. Especially if you think about working with a vocalist, piano really helps with working with vocalists. And that was part of the reason why, instead of going for a synth, I decided to get the Fender Rhodes and use effects pedals, because I can kind of recreate a vocal sound on the piano. I'll really have to do an episode on that. But that's why I went with an actual piano running guitar effects through it, so that I could work with vocalists in a better way. And then I ended up actually doing an album where on that album I used the piano through my guitar effects through my amp. I had a vintage Vox AC30 as well, and I used that to kind of double the guitar leads to make them kind of more interesting. And that album actually never got released, unfortunately. Maybe it will someday. I don't know. You know, if I can find some people to play it and do that kind of thing, that might happen. But yeah. As for making a pedal rig and an amp rig, I am at a loss currently for trying to figure out how to get that done. I honestly don't really know how I'm going to do that. I guess I could probably start with the guitar and figuring out how to get a guitar on the bike. I kind of mocked up an idea for strapping a guitar to the side of the bike. I am worried about the temperature changes on the guitar as I'm riding. That's a factor. And I'm also worried about the pipes heating up while I'm riding. That is also a factor. Because if the pipes are close to the guitar, it might heat up the guitar in that area, which could cause problems. And also, if the ambient temperature, you know, cold temperature, warm temperature, humid, rain, etc., that can also affect the guitar. But then if I'm going to do this and I want to do it in the future, which I do, I would love to like ride a motorcycle and then be able to take a guitar and a rig with me somehow. If I could do this and make it kind of future-proof, where I can do this more often in the future, then I would want that whatever thing I create to hold a guitar to be able to hold different types of guitars. That's also a thing, because I don't just play one type. If you watched any of my videos so far, you notice I play, you know, I play a couple Gibsons. I've got a Les Paul. I've got two custom ES359s. I've got that Australian-made Maton BB1200, Fender Telecaster. I got a couple other guitars that I have not shown because I actually keep them at my house as practice tools. Oh, I've got an acoustic, Taylor acoustic. It's the KC224, I think. It's the Koa, that Hawaiian Koa. It's kind of a dark brown. Really love that guitar. Acoustic, obviously. Which, that's also another thing. That acoustic guitar is wider than an electric. So when that's in the case is rather wide. So if I wanted to carry that acoustic with me, I would have to figure out a way that whatever mount I have could attach either an acoustic or different sized electrics. So, I mean, if you've ever had a Fender Telecaster case, you know those Fender Telecasters are they're rectangular. They're not shaped like a guitar. It's shaped like a giant rectangle. And if you've seen my Maton case is also shaped kind of odd. It's shaped like half curvature of the guitar, half flat. So, just things like that I have to take into account because I have to carry these guitars, and all the cases are different. Or I'll have to find a case that works. So, I'm just kind of trying to figure out how I can carry a guitar and an amp on a bike. initially, I mean, the best option would be a pedal board that could fit on the bike, but then I'm currently debating, well, if I did a pedal board, I might actually have to build a whole new pedal board just for this reason, to make it kind of compact and easy. But then I might not be able to carry it in, because pedal boards are rather large. My pedal board case is pretty hefty, and it's in a flight case for when I'm traveling, but it's pretty hefty. And the funny thing is, I used to have a lot larger pedal board. I don't know if I can find a picture of those, but man, I had a flight case. If you've ever seen like John Frusciante's pedal board from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, he's got this like giant table without legs sitting on the floor, and it's just like 4 or 5 layers of pedals up and down. That's essentially what I had. I played with that for years, and I had that thing decked out. I could play stereo guitar rigs, single guitar rigs. I had some pedals going through the effects loop, some pedals going direct into the amp. I had a wireless unit on there, I think. Like, I had a pretty crazy little setup, and unfortunately, not unfortunately, but fortunately, I don't have that anymore. To me, it became too big, and I realized, well, do I really need like this niche delay, or could I get away with playing a different delay? Could I get away with like a multi-delay, like has presets, and I just go through my presets and change what I'm doing? And I was like, yeah, you know, I can get through with getting something else. And then with technology getting better too, it used to be back in the day, you just had analog. Well, there were some digitals like the DD7s and stuff like that, but mostly just analog delays or digital delays that were small pedals, where you just had the one setting. It didn't do presets. It had one setting and it had no tap tempo. And then as technology has gotten better, since like the 90s going forward, you start having like tap tempo delays. You have pedals that have multiple presets, or you can save presets and you can actually bank through them in real time. And I mean, the invention of the Line 6 FM4 alone was a big deal. Then you also have like the DD20, the DD200, those kind of things by Boss. That's a Boss pedal. I believe it's an analog pedal. I actually own that pedal. I use it actually more nowadays for the looper, and even then the looper is only like 11 seconds long, so it's not long enough for me to really use, but it's long enough for me to get an idea down really quick and then be able to like play back over it. I honestly need like a newer looper pedal of some type that can go longer and maybe play like entire passages that I would do, and then I can play over that myself. That would be the ideal situation. In those regards, half the time I would just track the part I want to do onto the computer anyway, and then play it back through the computer to play along to. I mean, but that's because I have a whole studio to my, at my fingertips. Most people don't have that. But the looper pedal honestly would come in handy when I'm like practicing at home too. That would be a thing. I could record the loop at home and then be able to play. Part of that actually is why that Boss IR2 is looking very promising to me. The only thing is, the amps I tend to use are very much niche. Like man, they just don't make a lot of amps like them. I use that Hughes & Kettner Triumph Mark II, which for years the Triumph was their flagship amp, because it's a 6-channel amp. It's not, well, it's a 6-channel amp, yes, but those 6 channels act actually as if they're all their own amps. It's 6 individual amps. They kind of model what a Fender Tweed is like, and they kind of model what like a Fender Twin Deluxe is like, and they also kind of model what an AC30 is like, and what a Marshall JMP is like, and then they also model what a Marshall JCM800 is like, and a Bogner Uberschall. They kind of take a couple of different, more common sounding amps, and they put that all into one amp, and think of it as a jack of all trades, master of none. Now, I do have mine scoped out exactly for the way I like it to sound, so I have some channels that are a little different because they're matched up and biased with tubes that would match for the way that I want them to sound. So my 2B channel is actually pretty high gain, honestly. I can pump a tube screamer through that one and get some wild sounds that are actually highly usable either in high gain territory, but also can back off and you can use it in country and stuff. It's pretty interesting how versatile that amp really is when you actually get a deep dive into it. But mind you, that took like years of experimentation and then changing out tubes. So think of it this way. Now I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get all these channels and sounds I typically use scaled down into something that either does one or two of those, and then make that mostly usable for everything to cover a set of songs. Like, this is pretty complex stuff I'm trying to do. So I'm diving down. If anybody's got any recommendations on guitar pedals or even small amps that are portable, I'm very open-minded because I have no idea how I'm going to get this done. And I've got access to a lot of stuff, and I know a lot of people with things that I can maybe even borrow. That's also a thing. But then I'm also got to remember I'm on a bike. I'm not in a vehicle where I can just go pick something up. Yeah, if anybody's got any ideas on how to get through a gig on a bike, or if you've done it yourself, put it down in the comments. I want to see, because this is new territory for me, and I'll learn by trial by fire. We're just gonna wing it and figure it out.
Later, in the void.
Alright. So today's dad advice. Refrain from buying anything until you've expended all avenues of achieving the same goal with the stuff you already own. Now, this can apply to multiple things. I've mainly in my life used this to apply towards music stuff, mainly music related things like engineering, recording, you know. If I have the pedal or I have the guitar, try to figure out how to make the sound myself before trying to buy a new pedal or a new guitar or a new amp. Just try to figure it out with what I already own. That's the goal. But you can also apply this over to other things like, well, like if you were doing woodworking or, you know, doing like a little remodel, woodworking project, refinishing furniture, look and see if you already have sandpaper, if you've already got the stain, if you can get some free, if you can get some, you know, really cheap from like a restore, maybe clearance at the Home Depot, at the Lowe's, etc. But try to figure it out with what you got before going out and just buying something. So that's my dad advice. So remember, pull hard, play hard.